Have you ever spent hours on a project like a paper or a drawing and the computer crashes and it's gone? And not only is this beautiful thing you just made zapped out of existence, but you know now you have to start all over again from scratch. You've gone through this mental stress and taken this focused time, and none of it was for any purpose. This is the best way I can describe the feeling of burnout. You've been working hard, you've made sacrifices, you're fighting to get this goal, and you really need a break to recoup, to rest, to gather your resources. But you can't. It's like you just finished running a race and the finish line leads right into another race. And it just keeps happening over and over. So it seems like there's no reason for doing this because it never leads to a reward. And what do people tell you? Take a break, take time off, take a vacation. And this is really good advice, and a break will help burnout. But realistically, that's not always an option for everyone. Maybe you can't afford it, or maybe you committed to a project or a deadline and other people are counting on you. Whatever your reason for being burned out, I've been there, I feel you, and here are some ways to survive these trying times. Cut down to the bare essentials. Get out a pen and a piece of paper and write down the absolute bare minimum of your obligations. If you have any big bills that need to be paid by creative work or any deadlines coming up, jot those down. You are in survival mode and you need to know exactly what you're dealing with. If you're going through burnout, it's likely you have low energy and your brain feels like it's navigating you through a foggy dream. You can't be wasting any effort on things that you don't need to get done right this second. So while you're at it, put your difficult feelings aside. Now I know, this is way easier said than done, and it can take practice to get in the habit of this, but just take a minute and give yourself permission to not feel any worse than you already do. Don't worry about the future and what might happen. The present is tough enough. Anytime a thought pops into your head that is being down on yourself, doubting you can't do it, or feeling like you've already failed, tell yourself out loud that you're not going to think about that right now and direct yourself back to your tasks. Now, to take a quick sidebar, if on top of burnout you're dealing with anxiety, depression, other things like that, that is grounds for a pro. Get professional help. I can't help you with that. That's a lot to deal with, and you can't fix that by just trying not to think about it. But as somebody who dealt with crippling anxiety for years and I still deal with it from time to time, I can tell you that addressing my thoughts out loud helps me so much. If I sit down to start a painting and I think the deadline's too close, I won't have time to make this as good as it needs to be, stuff like that, I stop myself and I say out loud, I'm not thinking about that right now. Right now, I'm painting. When I started doing this, it was constant. I'd have to stop and repeat this to myself over and over, like at least once a minute. But after a while, your brain will start to believe you and stop harassing you so much with the things that don't matter in that very moment. Now that you have your list of bare minimum things that you need to get done, let's say for the next month, you want to start breaking that down into smaller pieces. For me, making the task teeny tiny helps me combat that overwhelming feeling that makes me just want to run away and not even start. Let's say I have to finish a painting to enter a show. That's one of my bare minimum things to do this month. So we'll say the deadline's in a week. The bare minimum for the week, breaking it down, is painting for 2 hours a day. And then to break it down even farther, today, I need to start the initial sketch. And then to break that down even farther, to do the initial sketch, I need to set up to paint, put down a colored ground, decide on my reference photos, and start the sketch. So you can see how small we're making this, and this just is to keep momentum so that when I'm looking at my list to do next, it's not saying paint for 2 hours. It's saying set up to paint. That's easy. I can do that step. I like to work in increments of 30 minutes. That's very doable for me. It's not too overwhelming. So I will set a timer and start the first task and do that for 30 minutes. And then after that 30 minutes is done, I look at the next task and I say, okay, all I have to do is this next 30 minutes, and so on and so on. And before I know it, I have painted for 2 hours. Something that started out seeming overwhelming was broken down and attacked granularly, and now it's done. Now, maybe you think you should paint for 6 hours a day. Maybe you could paint for 6 hours a day. But when you're burned out, when you're at your wit's end and the only thing you really feel capable of doing is running away and forgetting any obligation you ever had, doing something small, 2 hours a day, it's better than nothing. This isn't how I work all of the time, but when I'm in survival mode, this is what really helps me get through to those deadlines. Do you remember in the beginning when I said that breaks are the cure for burnout? So you may not be able to swing a vacation, but you will have time to take tiny breaks. This is a good time to remind yourself that you deserve space and you deserve time to recover. Take a moment to do something that's opposite of the burnout work that you're doing right now. If you're sitting down for work, stand up and move around. Go on a walk. If you're standing all day painting, lay down in a bath or take a nap. If you're having to solve problems and edit things, watch a fluffy TV show where you don't have to pay attention or play with a non-Newtonian fluid. If you can, do this every day. Schedule it in. Make it part of your workday. You know how people do cool down stretches after running or working out? Do that for your brain. Mentally unwind at the end of your bare minimum tasks. So the last thing you can do to survive this trying time is to remember that done is better than perfect. If you're burned out right now, you're probably not going to be producing your best work. But this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. A lot of people give up at this point when it gets really hard. If you can work at your top proficiency and take breaks in between, that's amazing and that sounds really healthy. But if you have to keep going, pushing through the highs and lows, the lows are going to be pretty hard and it might be lonely. And you might be upset that you're not making work you're super excited about. But you're still making work, and for me, that counts for something. When we are balanced and rested, it can seem like we are running on pure inspiration and like the projects are just creating themselves. In the tougher times, we really need to lean on what we know and get support from others and remember why we started creating in the first place. If you're burned out right now, I am so sorry. It hurts. When it happens, it's a really intense and burning pain in my soul because painting makes me so happy. And when I show up to paint and I'm burned out, I feel like I'm letting myself down, like I've been giving this gift and I'm not rising up to meet it. But the truth is actually kind of the opposite. It's more like when I'm down, painting is still there with me no matter how low I get. I don't have to rise up to meet painting because painting will follow me anywhere, even if I'm not able to be my best self. And then when things get better, when I start to feel alive again, it's like I never lost it. So far in my life, I've never been burned out by art. It's all the other things in life that happen when life is lifing that burn me out. And then it seems like it takes away all my energy and I don't have any left for creativity. So while art hasn't ever caused burnout for me, it is the first thing to be affected by burnout. You can make it through this, and I promise you are more capable than you might think or feel right now. This isn't the end, you haven't lost it, and your best days aren't behind you. The world needs your art. We all do. We need what you're creating. And right now, in this time of burnout, when you are pushing through and just trying to show up, you might not be writing your best-selling book. You might not be making your hit record, but it could be the very thing that leads you to that. And remember to drink water, get sleep, eat broccoli, all that great generic advice, do all that stuff too. Remember, I am rooting for you and your burnout art. And even though you can't just take a break right now, it's not that simple for everybody. I hope as soon as you can that you get rest and you recover. But I'm really proud of you for doing what you need to do, pursuing your art. And I'm thinking about you, cheering you on. You can do this. I'll see you later.